Welcome to the first ever episode 183 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. I'm your host, Jared Petty. That's right, Tim Gettys supplanted. You're never seeing him again, or at least not until next week. Tim Gettys, Greg Miller at an undisclosed location. So, folks, I'm hosting, and today, two very special guests, folks, I wanted to have here on Gamescast for some time. Across from me here, Mr. Mike Micah.
Yes, hello. Hey, everybody.
Thank you.
And
Wait,
Mike,
that wasn't for me.
Where are you from?
So where do I hail from? Or
No, let's start with, for folks who don't know yet,
Life
why are you
story.
sitting here? Why are you at this table, good sir?
I'm studio head for a company called Digital Eclipse and also for the sister company, Other Ocean. And I work with Frank Cifaldi on our Digital Eclipse Classic Collection titles, as well as a whole bunch of other weird things that Other Ocean does.
Excellent. And between us here, Mr. Frank Cifaldi.
Hello.
Frank, you're here representing what, who, where?
Well, I kind of live two lives, Jared. So I'm the founder of a nonprofit called the Video Game History Foundation, which seeks to make sure that historians have the tools they actually need to tell the story of video games, because a lot of this stuff is very rapidly disappearing from the world, and it's tragic and horrible. And then my sort of commercial life is at a company called Digital Eclipse, where we restore classic games to their original pristine condition and publish them with a whole bunch of bonus materials that help contextualize their history and teach you about them. Kind of the same work.
Okay.
One's nonprofit, one's for-profit.
But you're doing a little of both.
A little of both.
Okay,
I can't help being me.
It's just cross-pollination of the economics.
There is some cross-pollination.
But yeah, and y'all are here today primarily to talk about the incredible and broad, pervasive topic of video game preservation, of making sure that our history isn't lost. And that's going to be a lot of what we get to later on today in the work of the Video Game History Foundation. But first, as Gamescast, we always like to talk about the games that we're playing. So I'm going to start across the table with Mike.
What am I playing? You know, I've actually been... I have two young kids, and I introduced my daughter, who's the youngest at 8. She's just discovered Dig Dug.
Oh!
And so we've been just constantly slamming Dig Dug to see how far we can get. So she's getting up to like around stage 10, which is amazing.
Stage 10 is difficult for me to get to, and I love Dig Dug.
And so now, like, I sit there and play with her, but then when she goes to bed, I keep playing. So I'm trying. I've got that old high score thing coming back to me right now. But that's spending my time on that and Tempest 4000. You can tell I'm into the old stuff.
Well, if you're okay, so that hot new game, Dig Dug, obviously. Yeah. Where are you playing it?
I'm playing it on. Actually, I'm playing it on this little portable game she got for her birthday. Which is a little Dig Dug, I forget what it's called, like some little arcade thing, but it's actually the NES version of Dig Dug in it.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
So I hear that thing power up, and then we just get around it and play that.
Was there an NES Dig Dug 1?
There was a Famicom Dig Dug 1.
Yeah, in Japan.
Yeah. Right.
So they released it here in the U.S. on this little dedicated.
Whoa, neat.
Weird. I didn't know that. I kind of want to have that now. So she's playing Dig Dug. What's the appeal of Dig Dug? Why would somebody that's never played this game want to go back and play this old video game now?
You know what? Like a lot of these older games, there's a lot of charm and character to them, and Dig Dug in particular has this really cool mechanic since pretty much everybody's younger than me that's probably watching this. It's a game where you're digging through the ground, and there's these enemies. You've got a Figar and a Puka, and you have to pump and pop them with an air pump. So you have a hose that latches onto them, and you pump them up to the point that they pop, and you have to do that for every enemy and just get to the next stage.
It's the origin of a lot of weird fetishes, basically.
Pretty much.
You heard it here first, folks. Fetishes and Dig Dug. I love Dig Dug. I like the digging mechanic. I like the use of the gravity to drop the blocks on top of enemies, and that a lot of your score multipliers are built on trapping several enemies under a block at once. I love the art. The color palette just kind of
It's great.
pops.
Every game at the time used to be just like in space, pretty much. And so it was always a black screen with colorful things on top of it. But this is a very colorful, earthy kind of game. And we used that as a basis for a game we were building in, I think it was 2003, around then, as a spin-off from Spyro for Activision, or at the time it was Universal. And so we're going to make an Agent 9 game where it was a 3D action platformer, but you had a pump gun. You were pumping enemies with that. So that was one that didn't quite make it out there, but I'll dig up because of all that.
Do you have it?
I do have it, of course. Of course I have that.
What about, you mentioned Tempest 4000?
Yeah, so that's Jeff Minter's latest Tempest, which has been doing Tempest for years.
Yeah.
And
It's
much
not
really
always
changed.
called Tempest.
Yeah,
but
sometimes it's called
doing-
TXK.
Yeah.
But it's a visceral shooter. It's really fun to play. It's if you don't take drugs, it's like being on drugs. And you pretty much you just let go
and if you do take drugs, it sobers you right up.
It sobers you right up. So it kind of inverses whatever state you're in.
So Jeff Menner, Llamasoft back in the day, and again, folks may not be familiar. These are the kind of games he creates tend to be frenetic, instantly comprehensible, but very deep, and very psychedelic. Yeah. And while they're twitchy shooters, there's a lot of strategy going on, but you have tenths of a second to choose those strategies.
And that's the thing is, like, I really like action games. Are really hard to come by right now. Like things that have require like instant reaction times. And so I've been kind of diving into those kind of games again lately. And of course, I hate to say it, but Fortnite, because my whole family's a Fortnite family right now.
Why do you hate to say it?
It just feels dirty to say you're playing Fortnite when everybody else is playing Fortnite. I don't know. I like playing stuff that nobody else is playing, but like now
it's like going to like a high school baseball field.
It's like saying like, what show do you watch? And you're like, I watch
here.
Friends.
Okay. Again, actually, that's more of a dig dug answer. That you're likewise jumping back about 20 years. That works. That works out.
But what's a show now? I don't even watch TV.
Yeah, I mean, do you watch streaming now? I mean,
yes, of course.
Okay, what are you watching right now streaming?
I just got done with that series called Safe. I think that's what it's called, where it's a BBC drama. I keep saying Anthony Michael Hall, but it's Michael Hall, I think, is the guy's name. Okay. And he's the lead, and it's about his daughter goes missing. He's trying to find her, and it's just this crazy nutso thing. But I just got done with that one.
Okay, but you are playing Fortnite, and you're a Fortnite family, you say?
We are a Fortnite family. Like every morning, I watch my kids doing the dances and everything like that. I may join in sometimes.
Do you join in? Can you do a Fortnite dance for us?
No, I'm terrible.
Oh
no! I could try.
All right, let's see it. Fortnite dance.
I can do it. What's that thing called? The floss?
Let's see it. Let's see your best.
I can't do it.
We came so close, so close to having that breakout mode. Do you play Fortnite, Frank?
I don't.
Okay. So you play with your entire family. How many of them are you? How many
Four
of you
total.
are?
Actually, my wife doesn't really play; she just watches. So three of us play.
Okay, and you squad up with just
friends. We'll get online because we have the Switch and the Xbox, so we can kind of team up with those. But then one person's always out or whatever and trading in.
You love that crossplay.
Yeah. Look at that. That's the future. I hear.
Well, people, I hear about that crossplay. You're a developer. Is it difficult to implement? You guys make games.
We implemented the first crossplay Microsoft game.
What?
With PC and Xbox.
Expound.
That's true.
It's a game called IDARB. And it was an acronym for It Draws a Red Box, and it was a game that we kind of developed with the internet at large. And it came out it was like 3 years ago now, 3.5, 4 years maybe, who knows. But it's a game you could stream, and everybody who's watching the stream could interact with. And so in many ways, you go back to that, it was the first crossplay game. It was before Mixer existed in Microsoft Family, we're doing something like that.
It's before Twitch actually had developer integration stuff where you can interact with the game. We made it up and we just did it.
And we didn't think to patent it.
We'd be rich. But it's just like it did a lot of cool things. Like if you're watching the game on Twitch, you could type in like #bomb, and it would just drop a bomb into the game you're watching. So you could like
would just happen right there, right?
Well, it would happen, because there's a 30-second delay.
But you had an effect on what you were watching. I loved IDARB. I was never good at it.
Thank you.
But I loved it.
Thank you.
And I think you guys, was it y'all that came in to show it off? That's where I met you, Mike. That's right.
We came in to show it off. And that game we still get fan mail for almost every day, which I guess we should follow it up at some point.
That's an exaggeration.
Is there still an active community?
Almost. I'm seriously. When I say almost, it's like once a month.
Is there still an active community around that?
There is actually somewhat, for what it is, being 4 years old. I still get a lot of requests for features.
Yeah. And people, there's so much stuff in that game for no reason, like recipes and music editors and stuff like that. So I think there's still active communities of people who draw pixel art and make songs and things.
Somebody just made what song did they just there was somebody who made almost a full-length Adele song in it and posted it, and it got picked up and rose up Reddit for a little while, and that was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And people would drop real personalities in, you could play as your avatars. Could be. I wonder, was Cool Greg, do you know Kind of Funny was ever in IDARB?
I think so.
Yeah? Kind of Funny, IDARB? I wonder.
I think they are.
Cool, Greg, can you do that research project for us? It's IDARB. And while you're looking that up, we're going to talk with Frank. Frank, I'm going to ask you what you're playing, but first, we're already talking about you guys making IDARB, which is exciting. But I really think that you worked on Mega Man Legacy Collection. True. You're working on the new SNK 40th anniversary.
Street Fighter 30th.
But I really think
Disney Afternoon Collection, which no one talks about.
Nobody talks about that
we'll get there. I'm saving that. But all of that pales in comparison to the fact that you were the, I believe, producer on Sharknado, the game.
Okay, I remember the credit I gave myself for Sharknado, the video game, which I named, by the way, which was, I wanted the like film auteur credit for fun, so it was producer, director, and writer.
Oh, there we go. You got to, wow. So you are the Hideo Kojima
Yes,
of Sharknado.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, look here. Do we have them?
Oh yeah, there they are. Oh,
Look
I've
at
seen
that.
these.
Yeah.
There we go. It's kind of funny.
I remember these.
Right there.
yeah.
Oh, love that. You got the QR codes. You can bring them right into the game. So you want to play, you go back and play Ardorb, which, by the way, is the kind of game that never stops being fun.
Oh, there's the logo.
There's some kind of funny folks in the logo.
Yeah, I forgot about the whole
with.
QR code thing. So you
Yeah.
could just like scan
just
QR
scan these
codes
in
and
and
yeah.
just
This game is amazing.
Like when we demoed it, we had ourselves,
made up,
right?
yeah.
Like QR codes of ourselves on our shirt, I
Yep.
think, and you could just like
You would literally just run in front
Yeah.
of the Kinect camera, which nobody has anymore, and you just stand there, and it would zap the character out of your shirt.
yeah,
Basically.
freaking rad. So let's talk about
put
Sharknado for a
myself-
second.
oh, sure.
Because
If we must.
that was a must download. The moment that came out, I had that on my iPad. I know that you spent many years laboring to get the perfect Sharknado
2.5
feel.
month development cycle.
Okay, wow,
That's short.
That's more than usual for those kind of games.
Is it?
I don't know. Is it?
Is 10 weeks? Is 10 weeks more than usual?
No,
I mean, that's
it's
like
very
Todd
short
Fry
for
Pac-Man
anything.
time.
That's how you knew
know?
it was going to be good when you had 2.5 months.
Yeah, we just got it out in 2.5 months on no money. But it's like, you know, you look at that development schedule and you look at the money and you're like, we can't make anything good with that. But it's like, well, it's Sharknado. Like, let's not make a
You
bad
don't walk
game.
away from Sharknado.
Well, there's that, but it's also like the plan wasn't let's make a bad game. It's like, well, let's make a game that's on the same. Let's make the Sharknado of video games. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
like something that is unashamed of its budget, right?
Okay.
And so we made an intentionally sort of low budget Sharknado action game that I'm actually very proud of.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank
you. It switches between two modes. You've got a
Three
kind
modes.
of or
There are
three modes. Wait, what's
Okay,
the third
it's
mode?
a 3-act play because I like Donkey Kong.
Okay.
And it's so the first mode, you are what was his name?
Finn.
Finn. Thank you.
Yep.
Of course, Finn, sharks, yeah. You are Finn, the lead character from the movies. This was meant to be a tie-in to Sharknado 2, the second one.
Okay.
Which was the second one.
It's a great title.
And so you're in New York, and it's one of them infinite runners, if you remember those.
Back in the day.
3-lane runner. And you are running toward a Sharknado that is off in the distance in New York City with sharks swirling around, everyone's screaming. And so you're running toward it because you're Finn and you take down Sharknadoes.
Exactly, that's what you do.
You'll figure it out when you get there, right? Is sort of the plot. It's
And
just
you
like,
do.
I don't really know how I'm going to make this tornado go away.
But you do it.
But I'm
You
going to
figure out a
run up
way.
and figure it out. So it starts on the streets of New York and you're running toward the Sharknado. There are cars that are crashed on the side of the road and there are sharks everywhere. Right, including just like falling from the sky and like doing a little bounce. When
A
they
nice,
land or
elegant
something.
flop and bounce going on there. I like
And I decided that you look at a shark, they're obviously bouncy. Like you can bounce off sharks.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look at them. They're very
Why would you not?
rubbery.
They're very rubbery.
So they are also platforms. So if there's a shark on the road and like a crashed bus behind it, you could bounce off the shark. It makes a stupid boing sound, and then you can get coins off the bus.
Yeah.
Which you use to buy upgrades to your weapons because there's a bunch of weapons in there.
Right.
Anyway, that's phase one. You get far enough, and then all of a sudden everything floods because there's a Sharknado.
Right,
going
yeah,
on.
that's what's going to happen.
And then you're suddenly Finn still, but you're on his pink surfboard. I insisted pink. I don't know why. He needed a
Salmon.
pink surfboard.
Sure.
And at that point, it becomes one of those old like LCD racing games.
Yep.
Where there's just stuff coming at you. and
That's
you
the
just go
stage
left.
I
Yeah.
forgot. That's right, you got to dodge. Yeah.
And as you're doing it, the Sharknado theme, the Ballad of Sharknado.
Is
which
that the name of it?
Yeah,
It
we
is.
licensed it from the
I
person.
remember
yeah.
you spending so much time and effort trying to license that song.
Yeah, and then
You're
I
like,
just-
the game doesn't work unless I
We
have
need
that song.
we need the Ballad of Sharknado.
How much do you have to spend to license the Ballad of Sharknado?
Well, okay, I don't know what normal music licensing is, but this was emailing the guy and saying, "Is $1,000 okay?" And I'm saying, "Sure."
Okay, that's beautiful. Rad.
And it's this dumb surf song with lyrics.
Yep.
Like go 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 go.
I remember
run
that.
away from the Sharknado.
I played a lot of this game.
And as the sharks are coming at you, we animated their mouths, kind of going back and forth like that.
Yeah.
in time with the singing. So it kind of looks like the sharks are singing their theme song as they're coming at you and you're avoiding
Not
them.
a lot of singing sharks in gaming.
Not enough. Not nearly enough singing
Yeah, if
sharks.
IGN's top 10 shark singing in video games, y'all are definitely going to be near the top.
I have making of videos somewhere for this game where I was telling my animators in the Philippines how to animate the sharks with a shark puppet.
Can you imagine being this like group
So
in the
when-
Philippines who is getting the work order for this, going like, we need singing sharks.
And he animates like that where just his head bends back and forth. Yeah. So you get through the surfing part and all of a sudden you get to the Sharknado and you're whisked into it. And
That was a technical challenge.
I think all we did was just like flash the screen white and come back.
It was a technical challenge because you know what? I remember for 3 days we're coming with ideas of how to make it actually be feasible.
Oh, the actual on the shark part?
Yeah, because you're
Yeah,
riding
we were
on the
talking
back.
about like octagonal, like, yeah.
Everybody was overthinking it. And
It
it's
was just like make the camera angle weird and it works.
Yeah.
But in this scene, you are Finn and you are on a great white holding its fin and you got a chainsaw in one hand.
Yep.
Which was in the script they sent me, but not in the movie.
Okay, there we go. We just learned undisclosed Sharknado deleted scene confirmed. Put this on Kind of Funny Morning Show tomorrow.
And now in a very Pac-Man twist, you're the predator. You're no
Okay.
longer running from the sharks. You are running into as many sharks who are flying at you.
And you're in a tornado at this point.
Yes,
full of
you're
sharks.
in a
You're
tornado,
flying through the air
flying on a
back
shark
with a
with
chainsaw.
sharks coming at you.
Yeah.
And
you don't want to get hit, right?
You don't want to get hit by New York garbage.
Right.
My favorite touch in the whole thing, so there's just, I don't know, like taxi cabs and garbage and stuff. And my favorite touch is that one of the New York props is the Statue of Liberty's head. But there can be multiple of them.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Because it's a video game.
Yeah, it sounds lovely. And you made this in 10 weeks.
And hang on, the ending then
wait, the end,
is,
sorry.
and you defeat, like there's a, I don't know why, there's a boss like life meter for the Sharknado at the top of the screen. And as you kill sharks, the life meter goes down. I don't know why. You kill enough sharks and then it blows up and it says Sharknado destroyed. You're back on the street for round one again.
Rad.
Sharknado, the video game.
Absolutely rad. That makes me so very happy.
I'm glad someone played it.
By the way, before we go on, we need to do a shout out for a second to our Patreon producers, Warren Moore, Eric Heitz, and Tom Bach. That's Warren Moore, Eric Heitz, Tom Bach. These good people make this show possible. I want to thank y'all so very much for doing this for yet another month. It warms our hearts, keeps us going. We owe you so much. Cool, Greg, can you make a note of that one, please?
That doesn't need a time code.
What's that? That doesn't need a time code, Cool Greg says. All right, we good there. Moving forward. I'm learning. Off we go. Beyond Sharknado, I have to ask, you mentioned you made this game for not very much money.
Yeah.
And you made it in 10 weeks.
Yeah.
How do you make video games for not very much money in 10 weeks?
Philippines. We have a sister studio in the Philippines. So it's
and
like,
you partner with them?
yeah.
Is that
so
about
the-
exchange rates or?
There's a little bit of that. We've got studios all over the world,
Yeah.
really. We've got 2 studios in Canada, one in Manila, one in Madrid, and one here. So we push things out wherever we can to try to meet budgets when we come in. And we'll get ludicrous requests. So even some of our most recent games we're working on are like, they want this whole thing, and it'll normally take a year. How can you do it in 4 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
That sort of thing. So
Oh, you mean like the one we just shipped? Yeah.
just like the one we just shipped. So we always look tired. That's kind of the other part of it too.
So that's the short answer is that we only had one sort of in California cost, which was me, and then we had the rest was my team in the Philippines, which just their cost of living isn't nearly as much as it is for us here. So we were able to offset the cost by working with them, and it was just a lot of long nights with me on Skype with my Philippine bros and gals.
Fascinating. Okay, so a lot of that's done through that kind of like overseas outsourcing, and
Yeah, I mean, not always, and I think that's the only one I've ever done like that. But,
Okay.
It happens like that sometimes, but for the most part, we do most of
We're
our
a
stuff
smaller
in-house.
developer, so
Yeah.
we work on smaller games. Smaller games are a little bit more palatable that way.
Yeah, but also larger games outsource way more than we
Oh,
do,
a lot more.
even
Yeah.
including to our sister studio.
Yep, exactly.
time code here. Cool, Greg. Frank, what are you playing?
What am I playing? It's been a few days since I left off, but the last game I was playing, I was replaying Batman Arkham Knight.
Oh, no kidding.
I like that game.
Okay.
I don't feel like anyone talked about that game. I feel like it came out, people went, "Yeah, it's good. It's another Arkham game." Never heard about it again, other than the PC port's bad.
And that was that.
That was all anyone ever heard about that game. I think that game is brilliant.
Now is your opportunity to tell us why that game is brilliant.
Yeah, I'm actually going to.
There's so much content in this game, it blows my mind. There's so much history that they're drawing on because it is the rare actual conclusion to an actual trilogy in a video game. Like, straight up, this is the final one. They did 2 more, and this is, they did 2 before this. This was the end. It calls back to the other 2, which I really like a lot. And I don't know, like, have you played any of the Arkham games?
Sure.
I continue to think the combat is brilliant in all of those games. I think, the notion that, like, no, he's Batman. You just point him at the guy and he knows how to do a cool move and take him down. Like that's how you do a Batman game, right?
Okay, it's like, not trying to make it too granular, just being like, okay, look, I have several options quickly mapped here and it just happens. And then you're
it's
chaining
just
those
like
together.
Press a button and it's just cool looking. Which
right, and like Batman, if it's Batman, he's like kind of running on instincts and it's all just timing, right? It's just like balancing the playing field and being able to zip between guys and knowing when to throw the batarang and stuff like that. The combat feels great. But what I did this time, which I didn't do the first time I played it, which is right when it came out a year ago, I think, I went after all the Riddler trophies. I got them all.
Okay.
And it made me come to terms with why the new Zelda didn't work for me.
Oh.
here.
Dun, dun. Get off my set,
It's a deeper
sir.
well here.
The game's great. It's beautiful. That world is empty, nothing. There's just nothing in that world. Like, there's no reward. I never feel like the world has a puzzle for me to solve and then a reward at the end. It's just like, oh, you climb that thing, now you can get more of the blue gems, I guess. Like, you're just adding numbers to the spreadsheet.
If I were Harrison Ford, you would be off Air Force One right now. But no, I this is interesting to hear. So you saw Zelda as a very empty world, but when you were in Arkham, you didn't feel that way?
No, it's a small, contained, like, I want a game that, I want the Warren Spector game that takes place on a street. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is the ideal game world, because actually populating a large world is impossible, and you just get open, empty fields that, I don't know. I understand why people, I like the Zelda game. Like, it just didn't really work for me. I didn't stick with it more than like 40 hours. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I played it more than I play most video games. But
when you compare it to this open world, you thought this is a much better implementation.
Yeah, because like it's a smaller space and like everything that is there has a purpose. You know what I mean? Like, the building placement is there for fun. You know what I mean? Like being able to grapple up from that one to that one. Like, it's a video game level as opposed to a world that has video game stuff in it. It's just a large level. And every one of these Riddler trophies, not everyone, like some of them are just like, oh, you climb over here and there's a trophy. But the ones that were actually like puzzles, like every one of them felt great. I felt really smart. It did that classic adventure game thing where it just tricks you into thinking you're really smart, but you're actually an idiot. Just don't think about it too much. I find the Batman character and his villains compelling. I always have. Yeah. And the way they brought Joker into this game was so cool.
Yeah, that was pretty darn
incredible. I really
incredible.
like that. And the way they ended the Joker in this game was even cooler.
The fact that they let them play with the mythology to that degree was extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to imagine contemporary era DC being as willing to bend around that. Because it was in a lot of ways, it was a kind of boldness that the movies like to pretend they're being bold. But this was a much more understated boldness that actually made a huge impact. And I like that about it. I agree.
And just real quick, the writing.
No, that's okay. You
can
take all the time you want. We're not in any hurry.
Writing in this game is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love Paul Dini. I know he wasn't on this one. Writing was better in this one. And they nailed the Joker that's in my head. And which is like, he'll say something really screwed up and gross and awful, and you laugh and then you feel guilty. And that's perfect Joker writing. That's hard to do.
That's very hard to do. It's hard to tell any kind of uncomfortable joke.
Yeah.
And it's especially hard to tell 20 of them in sequence and weave them into a dramatic narrative.
Right.
I agree. That is really impressive.
Yeah. And so, I like that game.
You have just had the opportunity to make your case for Batman Arkham City. I think the game was well received, but I agree. It did sort of kind of come and go.
Yeah.
And that was sort
The
of
first time I actually noticed it was when it was already on sale.
Yeah.
Like, it was
interesting.
kind of weird.
I wish.
Did you play it, Mike?
I played a little bit of it, but not as far as he did.
Did you
But
get to the part with the Joker?
Yes, that was
Okay.
awesome.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
awesome.
Like he's there the rest of the game,
Yeah.
just like hanging out on rooftops and stuff.
That's
He's
awesome.
just I mean, is it a spoiler? Do we talk about the conceit?
We normally talk about spoilers. Let's leave this one to go. Okay. But I think we've tantalized people enough. I do think. I mean, we avoid spoilers a lot of the time, but today we'll stay away from that one. I do think it's interesting what you said about the world design, looking for the Riddler trophies that force you to explore everything.
Yeah.
I used to work in guides, so I. Hunting collectibles,
Yeah.
particularly for unreleased games. There's just nowhere else to look. You're going to find them, or they're not going to get found. And that forced me to look at games in a very different way. And I saw different ways of engaging with collectibles, and from that level design, it taught me a lot about how levels are laid out. I disagree with you on Breath of the Wild, but I also see your point.
Okay.
I actually think Breath of the Wild's level design is incredible. But it's incredible in being built around what we sometimes hear in theme park talk called weenies.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with that term?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The Disney weenie, like the castle is the weenie.
Yeah, it's the thing that pulls you in a direction.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I think
Zelda's great at weenies.
Yeah, Zelda
for sure.
is thousands of weenies. Like
Yeah.
that's the part of everywhere you're standing is a blip on a node with 3 other blips to walk toward that are all 100 yards away.
And then you
it just
get there
keeps
and
going.
it's like, here's one of 500 of these stupid seeds.
Well, it's not always a seed. Sometimes it's just like,
But it's just never rewarding to me.
why don't you love majesty, Frank? No, I think you raise a valid criticism. You're wrong, but it's a good valid criticism. Yeah,
It's like the same cutscene every time you get like the 500. I don't know if it's 500, but it's felt like it.
Yeah.
And it's just the same thing every time. And it's just like you use the climb mechanic to go on top of that hill. Here's the same cutscene again.
What are you playing this? Why are you what's the sorry? What? No?
No, I like this game. But
It's good.
but
It's really
just,
good.
Like I Zelda, I mean.
Oh,
Like,
okay, I
I
thought you
like
brought that
Zelda, but I feel like I have to get defensive because whenever I bring up why it doesn't work for me, I feel like people are just religious about this game, and it's like the game was great.
Well, again, we've been talking about old TV shows. It's Seinfeld. You're Elaine, and we're all talking about the English Patient. That's really where you're at. That's where you're trapped.
I don't get that reference, but I'm
Okay,
laughing
that's-
anyway to pretend like I do.
Okay, that's a
That's
beautiful.
why he doesn't like
Yeah.
Zelda.
It's a woman walking around in a world where every human being is absolutely captivated by the English Patient, and she just doesn't get it. And
I do get it, though.
She's losing her job over it. It's just it's finally. You're playing Fortnite, Mike. You playing anything new, Frank? Recently?
Newer than that now.
No, okay.
Yeah, just kind of, still poking at SNK games because we're doing some research on adding some new titles. So
Yeah.
doing a lot of SNK research for that project.
That's been really fun.
It has been.
We're finding, like, I haven't played half of these games, and there's so many cool things in these.
Yeah, that was a weird developer.
What the
SNK.
Yeah,
We're talking
and-
about
Old
the
SNK.
the
For
first
people
early
that-
catalog.
So people who aren't familiar with SNK 40th anniversary collection at SNK, just what's the elevator pitch on that?
Sure. SNK 40th Anniversary Collection is a celebration and compendium of what SNK was before they found their footing with the Neo Geo.
Yeah.
So it's like the Wild West days of SNK. And the way that I pitch it in my head, and I'm not the publisher, I'm not marketing it, but in my head, the way we designed it was that this is for the SNK fan who knows, King of Fighters and all those franchises, like all the Neo Geo stuff. It's like, well, let's explore what came before that. Like
Yep.
SNK didn't come fully formed from nowhere.
Yeah.
Like they had a history before
How
that.
did they get there?
And I feel like no one talks about the pre-Neo Geo games because they're so hard to play on MAME. Like I really think that.
Expound.
The controls.
The SNK, most of their notable games from the 80s used what's called their loop lever joystick. You know what I'm talking about?
I
with
do.
Loop
Yes.
lever?
Oh yeah. SNK fandom for me goes all the way back to the 1980s.
Cool. So loop lever joystick in the arcade, you're playing Akari Warriors or Guerrilla War, not Iron Tank, TNK3. You have a joystick and 2 buttons, but the joystick rotates in place.
Yeah, it's
And-
hard. It's hard to get that idea across
Yeah.
if you've never seen one. It's a joystick. You move it 8 directions just like normal.
Yeah.
But it also twists.
Right. So if you're playing Akari Warriors, he's got his gun out. It's not a handgun. It's more like that. But he's got his gun out, and as you're twisting the joystick, that's how you aim.
Yep.
And, it's kind of like a twin stick shooter.
But with one stick.
Before there were twin stick shooters and using one stick.
Yes, you moving forward by pressing forward, but to turn him to aim, you rotate the thing you're holding. It's amazing. It's a really cool system.
And so if you play that any other time that game's been re-released, like when SNK's done it on PSP and maybe even PS3 or whatever, the way they've mapped that is that shoulder buttons are rotate clockwise and rotate counterclockwise. And that works, technically.
Yeah.
But the issue is that if you have that loop lever and you have 8 clicky directions, you can muscle memory pointing exactly where you need to point.
And get good and fast.
Yes.
Right.
If you are timing, if you're like waiting, you have to like watch him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rotate to get where you want. And as you're watching him rotate, you're getting shot. And you cannot muscle memory the timing of the shoulder button, the clockwise, counterclockwise.
And so the games just don't feel right.
They don't feel right. They're not fun.
So if you're playing those games now in that way, you think they're terrible.
Right. Like people just don't understand, no, these games felt great in the arcade. And so
I used to own an Atari Warriors machine.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
So we felt the best way to, we're all about at Digital Eclipse preserving intent. That's always what it comes down to, right? So, I think we've had discussions in the past about like the video filters on Mega Man, right?
Yeah.
Like we put in a filter where it looks like crappy composite video. We put one where it looks like my amazing RGB monitor at home. We put one where it's just the pixels as sharp as possible, because we don't have a definitive answer for what the artists meant for the game to look at. So it's just like always try to find that artistic intent. I believe the artistic intent of the loop lever games was that you could muscle memory pointing and shooting wherever you want. And so the way that we implemented that was on a higher level before it gets to the game, we force twin stick on the game. So, if he's pointing forward you hit down on the R stick, he'll suddenly be pointing behind him, which is faster than you could actually do in the arcade. It makes it a little easier.
So as interested as you are in bringing these games to people, you're just as interested in bringing to them in a form that they maybe haven't experienced since they were originally available in arcades decades ago.
As close as possible.
Right, but it's less about bringing back the user experience.
Yeah.
To me, it's more about restoring the artistic intent.
Okay.
Why did they want to use the loop
right,
lever?
Exactly. And so... Yeah, like I want people to start. Like, I my goal with this project in particular was to make SNK fans, or really everyone, but my target was SNK fans. Really think about what these games were and how they led to the things that they love, and learn to appreciate these things that they probably never looked at before.
I'm excited because a lot of these games have not been collected to death. I mean, people constantly hear, I ramble about old games a lot because I enjoy playing them. But the SNK games. In the Neo Geo, you can find, you can be walking down the street of San Francisco and you will find an emulated copy of Last Blade 2, under a trash can if you look. Now, it shouldn't be because it's a great game. But the 80s games aren't, and a lot of them are fantastic. I mean, Crystallis alone justifies the collection.
It's probably the crown jewel of the collection.
That's what everyone gravitates toward for
But there's great things. Venture is a fascinating arcade game, and I haven't been able to play that anywhere. For ages.
You mean
and ages.
Vanguard?
Did I say Venture? Vanguard. Why did I keep saying Venture? Venture is the thing where you run into the dark. Vanguard's the space shooter in the tunnels with twin stick. That was twin stick.
Well, no. It was buttons.
Well, it was buttons, right.
Joystick and 4 buttons.
That's right. There's one over at High Scores Arcade that they have in the back sometimes. I forget about that.
I never saw that one.
Yep, there's one
That
there
would have helped
sometimes.
me a lot.
Oh, okay, there's one there sometimes.
It was a MAME. It was a MAME one.
Oh, okay. All right.
But it feels really great in that form.
That
All right, so that's what you've been up to there. And as for me, so I've let fans of Kind of Funny Gamescast here already know that I'm working on the Dragon Quest XI review right now for IGN, and can't talk any more about the game yet because it's not the appropriate time for me to be discussing the details. But that's eaten up most of my gaming time. However, I have had fun with a little mobile game because I can't play Dragon Quest when I'm traveling. Every now and then I'll just grab a premium mobile game, pay one price, and keep playing a game. And I stumbled upon a little thing that Touch Arcade reviewed called Task Attack. You all played this?
I have not played that one.
It's a 99-cent Android game. It is cute, and it is just kind of the quintessential 99-cent game. It's what I want at the dollar price point. It starts as a clever little Galaga-esque space shooter, and it's fine. You're auto-firing, and it's pretty well put together, and it's paced right. It feels right for, using touch controls. But then you start, while you're playing it, you start getting alert messages from the outside world for your task list. You get a note from like you're supposed to go pick up your kids at school. And then you get a note that, oh, by the way, it's time to, hey, don't forget to check your news notifications. And the shooter starts morphing so that the context of your real life is working into the game.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and they do it in a very simple sense. You can play through the whole thing in a relatively short period of time, but then it unlocks higher and higher difficulty levels and more stuff. So it's the first. It feels almost like an old compile shooter where bizarre things. You go to the grocery and now I'm being attacked by carrots. I'm at work. And it's the first time I've ever fought a giant pie chart as a boss where I'm blowing off different parts of the pie chart.
Oh, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, or I've got to pick up my kids at school, so their diapers are hurling feces at me in space, and then suddenly I've got to destroy their carpool. And of course, giant bouncing Donald Trump heads as you deal with the news, and Capitol buildings that are throwing Democrats and Republicans at you. It's $1 well spent, I say.
Hearing about this makes me sad.
Yeah?
It makes me sad because this is there's so much stuff coming out these days.
Yeah.
That game that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Like is gonna be forgotten. Not just quickly right now, but also because I don't trust that we'll be able to play all these mobile games in like 5 or 10 years and rediscover these weird hidden jewels.
Right now.
Yeah,
right, we can't play Sharknado.
Well, I can, but but you can't.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know.
As OS changes happen and the platforms change, these games vanish.
Right, and I don't know. This whole thing's been on my mind a lot because I've been interviewed like 4 different times now about the ROM site situation going on right now, and it's like I don't know. It's really unfortunate to me that a lot of these smaller mobile, and digital only games are probably going to actually disappear from the world forever. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be really difficult to find those sort of hidden gems in the rubble like we're able to do now with, the Famicom or whatever.
Yeah.
We can find physical versions of those things.
Right.
But now it's digital. We weren't ready for that.
Yeah, they're walled off. It's you know what? We'll save this for the second half here because I think we just reached the end of this part of the discussion.
I just needed to express my sorrow.
No, I think that's a sorrow. It makes a kind of a perfect segue. But before we do that, I do think it's important we take a word from our sponsor.
What's up, guys? Let me tell you about Hims. Now, we've been talking about this for a while. You already know Nick's been using it. Andy's been using it. They're loving it. 66% of men start losing their hair by age 35. There's certain people that were a little too late. Jared Petty, I wish that maybe we could send you into the past somehow so you can watch this ad and maybe it can help you out there because For Hims is out there helping out a ton of people. When you start to notice that you're losing your hair, it's a little too late. So now you can get ahead of that. There's these gummies that Andy keeps talking about. He just loves these things. Nick loves them so much too that he keeps walking by Andy's desk and stealing them. But then they have to do the whole trade where when Nick gets his, they have to like renegotiate who gets the gummies. It's a whole thing. I don't know. But they've been using it for a while. And like I said, they have been loving it. These are well-known generic equivalents to name brand prescriptions to help you keep your hair. There's no snake oil pills or gas station counter supplements. They make this really easy. You can skip all the awkward doctor visits and all that stuff. You can just kind of do everything online. They send it stuff in a discreet package. You don't need to worry about anything. You're looking out for yourself. And hey, I appreciate you. So like I said, super easy. Just answer a few quick questions. Doctor will review and prescribe you what you need. Then products are shipped directly to your door. You don't even need to leave your house. Make it that easy for you. You can order now. Listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 right now while supplies last. You can see the website for full details. This would cost $100 if you went to a doctor or pharmacy. Why would you do that? Why waste your money when you can just do this? Go to forhims.com/gamescast. That is forhims.com/gamescast. forhims.com/gamescast. Keep your hair. Now back to you, Jared.
And we're back to talk about the Video Game History Foundation. And when I think of that, I immediately think of a large marble museum, maybe something like the Field Museum in Chicago. You've got Doric columns and big glass doors. You got a giant dinosaur in the lobby.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Mario gallery off to one side. So y'all are a big giant museum, right?
Absolutely. No. No, the Video Game History Foundation is sort of intentionally not a museum.
Okay.
So museums, the primary goal of a museum is to educate the public, right? the Video Game History Foundation, we believe in that, of course, but the hole we're trying to fill right now is that we don't feel that the historians, the potential museum curators of the future, just even people who make cool history videos on YouTube or edit Wikipedia or whatever, we don't feel that researchers have the tools they need to properly tell the story of video games because, well, several reasons. I mean, we're such a secretive industry that like all of the development material and stories and things like that just gone forever. We don't keep our source code because I don't know
There's
why.
no standards.
There's no
nobody
standards for
has
keeping
time
source
for it.
code. So like so many games are never re-released again because no one held on to that source material. It'd be like it's the analogy that we often use. It's the same damn thing. It's like the early days of cinema in the United States where in the silent film days, you would make a movie, you'd sell it to theaters, they'd screen it, you'd move on to the next one, you'd destroy the film because there's not even a television. The television doesn't exist yet, let alone like home video.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no reason to ever think we're going to resell these movies. So why are we paying money to store them? Let's destroy them. So most of them are gone forever. I mean, I'm going to fudge the number, but a Film Foundation statistic is something like 90% of American film before 1930 just does not exist in the world anymore. It's gone forever. And
What percentage would you say of video games developed between 1970 and 1990, do you think, fall into that same kind of category?
Well, if we're counting absolutely everything, then we're counting, like hobbyist projects, things like that.
Yeah.
But like, are we talking like commercial releases?
Let's say commercial releases.
I think there's still a lot of unexplored microcomputer territory, right? Especially if we're talking about, the early days of microcomputers where it's like, Richard Garriott making discs at his house and going with Ziploc bag. Like, I think we lost a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think if we're calling it a percentage, it's big. And so I'm actually not terribly worried about commercial games from that time period.
What are you worried about?
I'm much more worried about current games, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm worried about like anything that was on a cell phone, right?
Okay.
Like, I think we already lost most of the Java phone days.
Yeah.
I think those are gone.
Those decks are just somebody deleted the last file. There's no way to run them, even if you have them.
And it was like, it was like the silent film days. Again, it's like no one was like, well, we should archive this because we're going to republish this crappy cell phone game someday. No, it was just...
So when you look at the old decks, it's some of these really innovative things that were tried and done there. Those dev kits are just gone forever, and the ROMs with them, you think?
Dev kits are gone, and there's also in those days no way to get those games off of a phone, even if you wanted to back it up yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, there must have been because there was a piracy scene, but I'm just not that familiar with it.
Yeah,
And
but
it's
it
like,
wasn't. It's not like a film where you can just like.
Yeah, here's
right
the
now,
film.
Yeah.
The actual film.
Yeah.
So for the two of you here,
Yeah.
obviously I care, or I wouldn't have you here. But why should we care? Why should I care about crappy old cell phone games and making sure?
Because
that
it's part of the story. I mean, it's part of the story of how we got here. It's part of the story of what the old days led to. Even it's like this chunk of the story of video games that is this culture that we all partake in every day. I mean, all of us in this room anyway, not the entire world. But like, I think we all understand inherently that video games matter, right?
Yeah.
They affect lives. They I mean, all three of us at this table, it's like this is our lives. Our lives revolve around games. And it's not. I think it goes well beyond just sort of like a nerdy fandom or whatever. It's like, no, the video games are how I sort of, I don't know, like it's my cause. It's how I interact within this world. It's like how I choose to live. My life is around these things. And
It's my favorite artistic medium.
yeah,
essentially.
absolutely. And if we're missing chunks of that, then it gets scary. And it's like, that's an easy one to point to, right? Where it's like, we're missing the cell phone games of this era. That's a big part of our story. Very few of those are actually worth playing, to be honest with you. But like that's an era that's lost already.
Yeah.
Right. And
it was only a few years ago.
Yeah,
it was only a few years ago, and like how many Android games are gone? How many iPhone games are gone? You know, and I don't just mean gone from the store, because that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But like gone from being accessible if someone were writing a book right now.
Yeah, I don't know how to play Pack and Jump if I want to.
I have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I want to play Pack and Jump.
Well, even if we wanted to put Pack and Jump on something more modern that you could play it on, how do we get it there if it doesn't exist, or if there's no source code anywhere, or anything like that? That's the biggest problem we're really running into is how do you future-proof these things so that even if you do save it, like how do you get it to move forward so that people can experience it, because the technology changes constantly. Film, it's changed a bit over time, but not like technology for video games. It changes like overnight.
Right, and it's like, you know, games are. I was just thinking about this morning. It's weird, but like games are it's such a weird space where it's like the equivalent of where games are in terms of availability is like if movies were never re-released after they were on VHS.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's really what it's like for games.
There would never been DVD, there'd never been Blu-ray, there'd never been streaming.
So the only way to watch Uncle Buck or whatever is like to like maintain a VHS player that no one's produced in years and like hope that your tape doesn't get eaten. That's the only way to watch Uncle Buck legally.
I love that of all the films you could have landed on,
pulled Uncle
the
Buck
John Candy classic Uncle Buck.
Yeah, there's that came from somewhere.
That's to bring more weight to the conversation.
That really does add to the gravity. You know what? That was one big pancake. All right, in that movie.
That were pancake.
That was one big pancake he made in that movie.
It's funny. I was tapping back. So I gave a GDC talk about this in 2016, and Uncle Buck was the analogy I made. I was trying to explain just how how different it is, the situation between games and film. And so I was looking at the top games of 1990. I was looking at the top films of 1990, and I was just kind of comparing them. I was like, what's the closest comparison? And the closest one I came up with was DuckTales and Uncle Buck. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, it was like, okay, DuckTales, out of Princess 89, that's it. We've since solved that problem.
Yeah.
And it's like Uncle Buck. You look at Uncle Buck. You can stream it on Amazon. You can stream it on Netflix. You can stream it on like all these different knockoff streaming things.
Yeah.
You can buy it on DVD. You could buy it on VHS. You can buy it on Laserdisc. You can buy it like 8 different Blu-rays with combo packs with different movies. Like Uncle Buck is there for you. You can rent it digitally. You can buy it forever digitally.
Your Uncle Buck
SD,
needs are fulfilled.
HD. Uncle Buck's here to stay.
Ringtones.
Whereupon Disney's DuckTales, your only option was to hope you could find a ROM somewhere or dig up an ancient deteriorating
your only
cartridge.
legal option was to go on eBay and spend like $1 million to get all this ancient antique hardware and hook
yet,
it up to your TV somehow.
Thanks to the efforts of Frank Cifaldi, and there was no way we were getting through this show without talking about this. So sometimes impossible things happen in the world. Every now and then. One of the most impossible occurrences in video games in the last 10 years, in my mind, was facilitated by folks at this table. And I really do want to know about this. How in the world did you get the Eye of Sauron, that is Disney,
I see.
to focus in and be like, you know what we should pay some attention to and sign off on? Reissuing Disney licensed NES games. It never happened on Virtual Console.
Yeah.
It never happened on any other collection, but somehow you, Capcom, and Disney came together and made this happen. How in the world did that occur?
I thought you had an answer.
No, you can jump with it, but I think it had a lot to do with what came before it.
Yeah. So Mega Man Legacy Collection came before that. It was a very, very successful product for Capcom. Just recently found out that something I directed sold 1 million copies, which I haven't processed that. Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Please tell me you're getting a percentage.
What's that?
Please tell me you're getting a percentage.
A percentage? Oh, no, we're not.
The company doesn't.
No. And then no. Yeah, so that was pure work for her. And so, there was a success of that. So, like, Capcom, of course, wanted to do a follow-up with us.
Yeah.
Disney Afternoon Collection, by that name even, was something we had pitched to them, like before Mega Man, maybe. Even.
It was actually right before Mega Man,
because we knew people at Disney and we just wanted to bring these games back. And I still have my old pitch for Disney Afternoon Collection, which is, I think, exactly the same package that we shipped all those years later.
I'm pretty sure there's footage of me somewhere on some podcast just going, you will never, ever, 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 ever see DuckTales again.
But yeah, it was just right moment, right time sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like Capcom and Disney had been talking about doing something, and they're like, hey, have these guys who do this sort of thing for
Wow,
us. So,
that's really cool.
I don't know how much we inspired it or how much it was just.
That was just the right time, like you said, and we jumped quickly too. It wasn't one of those things where we didn't think about it very long. We said, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And let's make it happen.
So that was a fun collection.
Yeah, y'all got called out recently for influencing the decision to go to greenlight Mega Man 11 too, right?
Yes,
yeah,
we
that was
did.
the apparently Legacy Collection selling 1 million copies is what greenlit Mega Man 11. So if it's good, you're welcome. If it's bad, it's not my fault.
Have you played any of it yet?
No.
It's the
seems
stuff
pretty
they're
good.
showing's good.
Is it?
Yeah, the stuff they're showing that I've played is good.
Cool.
I was like, wow, this is really good.
But that's a good example of like we know we've done our job well enough when they greenlight a sequel, an
Right.
official sequel,
Yeah.
after we put a collection out there. We did this a long time ago as Backbone Digital Clips for the Super Street Fighter Turbo HD remix, if I get that right. We put that out there, and that led directly to Street Fighter 4 getting greenlit. So it's like if we do the right job, we get people excited, and what we do excites people enough to want to spend money on that franchise, that's awesome.
And
Oh,
much
go
like this situation, it wasn't the Street Fighter 4 that you guys pitched.
Yeah, yeah. Which we ended up pitching Street Fighter 4 in a different direction.
Oh, really? What can you tell us about this? I'd love to know.
Well, after we did Super Street Fighter Turbo HD remix,
I think you got it that time. Yeah.
yeah, I got it at the time. We were in a good position, and Capcom asked us for a pitch, and so we actually put together a really comprehensive pitch to make the next Street Fighter. And surprisingly visually, it's very similar. What they ended up doing.
Okay.
Like the painterly style.
Yeah, that painterly style was already established in the pitch that we had put together and everything like that. But they ultimately ended up doing it internal because at that point, it makes sense that it's coming from Capcom Japan or something like that. And like in hindsight, when I think about it, I'm like, that was so risky. If we did do it, it would have been a huge risk.
Yeah.
But we really wanted to. But
What would your Street Fighter have done differently?
if I remember correctly, we had some weird. Like, this is where I think the risk was. We're hell bent on having some sort of like rewind time, kind of limited capacity thing in a fighting game, and we had mocked up some stuff, and it was really fun. But I don't know how well that would have worked with classic.
Yeah.
It's really Street Fighter fans.
It's screwing with the formula
you
too
don't,
much.
You
Yeah.
don't fuck with the formula too much. If you stray a little bit, you're gonna be.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I love the idea of a Braid-esque fighting game. That kind of sounds amazing. to
Yeah,
me.
which I think you do that as not Street Fighter.
Yeah, not Street Fighter numbered sequel.
Okay,
right?
that's
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
All right.
Because that would be too much of a departure.
Wasn't there? Was it your pitch that had a sort of like you're playing moments in the story of Street Fighter,
Yeah.
like you're going back in history?
You are. So we went back to a lot of like major moments in like Ryu's history and all stuff, and like you're able to have that kind of part of the time continuum in this whole thing and elaborate on those stories.
Kind of funny is Nick Scarpino stepped into the room.
Hi.
Here off
Hello.
camera. Hello, Nick Scarpino. Are you loitering and lingering to take a talk on the shock mic here?
No, not at all. I'm just taking a break and listening to the discussion a little bit. I was just
Oh,
rendering out
okay.
some graphics back there, and then I remember that I took this amazing picture of myself. And I'm not sure when this episode of Gamescast is going live, but I'm going to come on here and pimp it.
All right, I'm going to show this picture off. This picture, I believe,
nice.
similar autograph pictures will be available to patrons at certain tiers,
Supports
right?
the fan mail tier or above, or actually no, just the fan mail tier on either of our Patreons. That's patreon.com/kindafunny or patreon.com/kindafunnygames. You get a signed picture of the champ. I don't
Nice.
know him personally, but he seems like a rad guy.
Yeah. You think you can provide one of those for our guests today?
I cannot, but eventually I can. This is a prototype of the pictures.
well, we need to archive that.
It's worth
Yeah.
noting that the signed the signature on the new pictures will be either in silver or gold,
Okay.
not black. We've decided black does not adequately add to the glamour of the picture.
Got it.
Okay.
Got
Let's
it.
see.
Did you guys need refills on LaCroix by any chance?
I would love one. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, I'll take
absolutely.
one too, actually. That sounds great. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Nick. Gentlemen, headed back in. So you talked some about the need, and you talked about the challenges. So how are you meeting them? How are you saving pieces of video game history?
Yeah, I mean, we only talked about games as in like playable games, right?
Yeah.
And that's a part of what we do. But what we tend to focus more on are, I said more on, we focus a lot more on raw material than we do playable games. Because like there's only so much time in a day. There's only so many people in the foundation, and it's like we kind of have to figure out where that highest impact is to actually make a difference and sort of bandage the bleeding in terms of video game history disappearing. And
So you're triaging.
we're triaging. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for finding that word that
That's
was
okay.
like circling in my brain but not escaping my mouth. Yeah, we're triaging video game history, and where I think we have the most impact doing that is not so much the games themselves, because the majority of games were sold commercially to people, and there are multiple copies around in the world. They're not already on pirate websites, right?
Okay.
So what we're more worried about, what we're more focused on, are the parts of that game. You know, the design material, the concept art. Thank you very much, by the way.
Okay, so the stuff that went on in studio then.
Sure, a lot of that, but even things like we have a very large library of printed material related to video games, because that it's not really a thing. Like if you're studying, like if you want to know what were reviews like for Earthbound when it came out, you know, it's like you can find a couple of those reviews if you go on like the websites that scan magazines, but they haven't scanned all of them.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you're researching that thing, you can't, I mean, you know, I challenge you to go to worldcat.org right now and find Electronic Gaming Monthly in a library. You're not going to. You will at the Strong Museum of Play, which is in Rochester, New York, when they're
Who you
wonderful
partner
people.
with?
I don't know about partner, but I help them
you
and
help them,
donate
yeah.
things. And,
Yeah.
you know, you can't go research video game history at a place other than Rochester. And so, you know, that's a big focus of ours is a library. And we have a good majority of video game magazines, especially from the 90s. Like, we're super well covered in the 90s.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those like high impact things where it's like, well, yeah, magazines kept going after 2000, but also like IGN, GameSpot existed. You know what I mean? So like at least the news is covered, and we have some sense of what did people think about this game in its time. You know what I mean? Just by searching the internet. But anything before that is just kind of this black hole of information. So we're collecting a lot of that stuff. We're collecting a lot of, you know, just like going to developers and being like, do you have any of your old notepads? You know, like something that the Strong has that I love is they have the notepad that Roberta Williams used when she was just brain dumping, I think, King's Quest 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's just like 8 pages of Roberta's handwritten, just like
Notes on that.
like, yeah, and like some of these ideas don't even get into the games until like 2 sequels later, but she's just like brain dumping, and it's just like such a rare thing to see someone's creative process on paper like that, and we just don't have that for games. Like, you can't, you know, for a lot of authors of books, for a lot of filmmakers, there are like archives that you can go and look and sort of get the details into how they made the thing, right?
Yeah.
What they were thinking. How are you going to research like what Miyamoto was thinking when he made Donkey Kong? You know what I mean?
And you mentioned secrecy earlier.
Sure.
And an industry where video games were born in the era of corporate patent copyright
Absolutely.
Protection and control.
Yeah.
And so when Mr. Miyamoto stands up to speak, he's speaking for Nintendo.
Yes.
And therefore, we don't get certain portions of his mind or experience. And people that leave companies sign NDAs, or they never leave the companies, or when they leave, they feel a sense of loyalty to the creative process, and a lot of them never talk. How do you get those parts of the story?
So in this scenario, they're not responding well to questions.
Yeah.
Then we probably don't. I mean, like, you can't force this stuff out of people. All you can really do is make them feel comfortable with the idea that, you know, no, we're not like collectors, you know, who are just putting this stuff in a closet. Like, the idea here is that we are a proper 501c3. I did all the paperwork. Like, we're a nonprofit corporation recognized by the federal government. We're an educational company. And, you know, if that material exists, it should be somewhere for educational purposes, unless you just, you know, I wouldn't put my teenage writing anywhere, but, you know, like within reason, stuff should be accessible.
And Mike, you're part of the foundation and work in this effort too. What's your contribution, Lawrence, to this effort?
I'm on the board, and I come in and I help wherever I can, and especially in this sort of situation where we're talking about what do you do with, say, like a game source code, and how do you archive that within a company? Because we have this weird situation where video games were they came out of the technology industry, which was very secretive. Technology in general, like everybody's worried, like you said, about patents or having any sort of technology stolen as somebody left and all that stuff. So it was ingrained in people's minds before the creative aspect came into it, and the entertainment aspect came into it, that you just have to be very secure about all that stuff. And so once video games started to take off, I think we had the worst of both kind of there. Like you have the creative mindset and you have all this stuff and everything like that, which is really cool and everything like that, but then you've got the evil kind of like corporate thing that butts heads with that. And the concept that whatever you're working on now always owned by the corporation, and whatever you do, if you leave, you have no rights to any of this stuff. And then even it went so far as suppressing designers' names from games because they were worried that they would get poached by other companies. So you had this like really just like it was like a dictatorship you worked for.
Yeah.
And so that went on until about the 90s, just as the 90s came around. And so when people were working for these companies as they left, what we find, if we find any of this stuff, is that the people who went up against that tyranny or whatever of the corporation, they would steal the information anyway. They're more punk about it. And they would walk away with that because they didn't want to lose their work. Or like a lot of these people were working day and night on stuff. And like the thought that all that work would be owned by somebody else didn't sit well with some of these designers. So
and that's not new to the video game industry.
Not new.
No, I'm trying to think about
that's how archives happen is people steal from work.
Right, that's the archive.org. I forget the name of the...
Scott.
Yeah, thank you. Jason Scott says steal from work. I was at GDC and he just said, steal from work. You're saying to a room full of developers.
I'm going to get that on a t-shirt and wear it to GDC.
Exactly. Because like right now...
that's a good idea. I'm going to do that.
Well, he sat in a room of several hundred developers. Steal from work.
White text on black, big screen, steal from work.
That'd be a great shirt for the foundation.
It's awesome.
Absolutely.
But now we have to kind of go out there and try to get everybody in the mindset that you should be able to share this stuff. People should be able to archive this stuff in a certain way that's amenable to everybody, and and try to get that process off the ground. And so I'm really keenly interested in figuring out what is that process that we can take to an Electronic Arts Activision that's unified, that makes sure the stuff's preserved in a way. Because like as soon as a game's done, people tend to want to just like go home, leave the company, go somewhere else, or do whatever. It kind of rotates like that. But in the film industry, when a game's being developed or a movie's being developed, there's a lot more openness about it.
Yeah.
People like directors are talking about what they're trying to do with the movie. And
well,
all
studios
kind of
announce a movie before they've begun production,
Exactly.
Right.
and video
the
games
opposite
announce
video
a
games.
game when it's nearly done.
Yeah, so there's a lot of games. So how many games could we theoretically conceive of now that were near completed but were never announced?
Well, how many do you and I just happen to know about because we're in
Exactly.
the industry that it's like, man,
There's
should've
so many
happened.
games that were just on the cusp of coming out that could have been incredible games,
Well,
but they were never announced.
Let's talk about that. What were some of the... I mean, you guys are, in a lot of ways, kind of digital detectives. You're sleuths. What are some of the discoveries you can talk about that you've made? Things that you're just like, holy crap, I found that. Or, holy crap, that existed. Tell some of those stories.
Well,
cool, Greg, make a note of this one, please.
So unreleased games has always been, not always, since 2003, which is practically always, been a big focus in my life is recovering these games that never shipped, that got far enough along to at least be, representative of something. And I started a website back then called Lost Levels. It was the first website about unreleased games.
Is that before or after the FUFUA thing?
FEA.
FEA. FEFEA. Pardon me.
Wow, you're really going back, man.
Sorry about that.
That was...
So the FEFEA was...
it was basically like our little piracy group that was tracking down ROMs and dumping them.
And that stood for...
That stood for fuck 'em all.
Okay. And then
and that was because we were... I was very young. A lot of us were. And it was anger directed at the boogeyman collector who was hoarding one-of-a-kind video games for his like goblin treasure pile. and not sharing them and holding them for ransom.
Okay.
And so it was fuck 'em all was a reaction to that because the way we started was, no, we're going to outbid them for this stuff because there's 10 of us and one of them. And that's actually how we started. We started by like outbidding collectors for prototypes and being like, no, they're ours. They're on the internet.
And you give them away.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you went to Lost Levels. And
and
the
we
focus became...
still angry because I had anger issues in retrospect, probably. Oh, I feel like I just had a breakthrough here. It was sort of the same deal, but it was less anger and it was more like, well, how do we actually accomplish this? How do we ensure that one-of-a-kind video games, things that didn't ship, that might only exist because the programmer kept one, or like it was sent out for review to a magazine but then canceled before it was shipped, and like the journalist kept it or whatever. how do we get as many of these as we can archived, put on the internet so people can reference them and play them, and that's where Lost Levels came from. But it was also, the other place Lost Levels came from was, every time we do this, it's just a ROM that goes in a ROM set and no context or anything, right? So it's like, people will load up this game and be like, oh, look at this stupid game. I can't believe someone made this. It's like, no, it wasn't done. You know what I mean? Like it's losing that context. You don't understand why they made. So Lost Levels was also my crash course into journalism. Like, I had no desire to be a journalist or anything, but it's like, no, these stories have to live. I care about this for some reason.
Which is how you ended up at 1UP and places like that,
like
right?
the way later on, but like my video game journalism career started on my own website, and I started writing for magazines. My first magazine gig was with Nintendo Official Magazine UK.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
No
I was on the, as most people start, I was on the Game Boy beat.
There we go. Well, that was back when mobile games had a kind of a stigma about them, or portable games did.
Right.
Maybe the same stigma mobile games have now on phones.
Yeah.
That those weren't real games.
Right.
Even publishers wouldn't pay attention. They knew they had to have one.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
Which
Exactly.
sucked because so many of them were great.
Yeah,
And
some of them
was
were,
like,
yeah.
there's some wonderful mobile, or portable games back then. So what'd you discover? What'd you find?
yeah.
I think, I mean, we knew it existed, but the one I was really proud of when we made it happen in like 2004, 2005 or something was Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors for the Sega CD, which was the only Penn and Teller video game, but it was a game by Accolade that was co-designed by Penn and Teller. I mean, they weren't really in the studio like writing design docs or anything, but they were sort of overseeing it creatively.
Yeah, they were involved.
Yeah, they were very involved.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just like, usually when you involve someone from Hollywood or whatever in games, like it usually comes out really poorly, but
Beat
at
Takeshi's
least
challenge.
That's my whole career.
but they at least have interesting ideas that you and I are never going to have.
Yeah,
Right? Because we're
exactly.
video game people,
Yeah.
they're not. And this is a collection of strange games that, or magic tricks even on your television, that like no game designer would have come up with.
Including, of course, the immortal Desert Bus.
Desert Bus, of course, is
Yeah.
the one that everyone knows and
Yeah.
loves, and it's for those who don't know Desert Bus, it is a simulator where you drive a school bus from Tucson, Arizona to Las Vegas, Nevada. It's an 8-hour trip on a straight road. It's
In real
literally 8 hours in real time that you drive straight on a road. There is a score counter, I believe 6 zeros on the top of the screen. When you get to Vegas, the last one flips up and you have 1 point, which is just brilliant. And then they ask if you want to make the return trip. And of course, like people took that, and Desert Bus for Hope is now an annual charity where people
You just endure this 8-hour driving. And I think there's no other traffic, and the bus veers. You can't just lay the controller down.
You can't just
you
stick
have
the
to
controller
control.
one direction or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention.
And there's the bug that splatters on the windshield halfway through. I think that's the only other thing. I think I'm probably stealing that from you, because I don't think I've ever finished an 8-hour run.
Oh, I haven't either. But eventually a bug splatters on your windshield just out of nowhere, which I think is a brilliant touch. It's like hours in.
Yeah.
They'll let you know it's working.
Yeah. And then there's a day-night cycle also.
Yeah.
I don't know what the record is, but back then they were actually holding a contest for like the high score for Desert Bus. Which
And
is
you
really good.
found that. You got that into the world.
It's okay. I'm not going to claim credit for finding it, but by starting Lost Levels, by being professional about it, by going out there and doing it and showing how things should be done, that inspired its owner to donate it to us and say, please get this out into the world.
And
So
suddenly it became part of the story.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's that one. What other unreleased games? Sunman is one that I bring up a lot because it's one of Kenji Ino's first games. He's no longer with us. And of course, that guy was a friggin' genius.
That's the guy from Warp, right?
Yeah. God, what else? There's been so many. Bioforce
I was
8.
going to bring that one up. Bioforce Ape is one of my favorites.
So tell us about Bioforce
Yeah,
8,
please.
Mike.
Yeah.
It's by Seta, right?
Yeah.
And
Seta, S-E-T-A.
TA. Yeah, not to be confused with Sega. And you are a bionic ape, as far as I can tell. Like, I don't
He's
know.
not bionic. Okay. The story.
All right,
The
so
story
okay,
is
let's do
on the
this.
title screen.
This is why. Okay.
Story's on the title screen. You're a little baby monkey in a diaper.
Yep.
Mad scientist drives up in a van, kidnaps your human family, and then kicks you and gets in the van and drives away.
Yeah.
And then baby monkey in a diaper picks up a vial that was dropped on the ground or something, drinks it, grows into an 8-foot tall wrestler gorilla still wearing a diaper.
Yeah.
There we go.
And the game is for NES. What blew me away when I first played it was that it's so fast. It just moves so quick.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a Sega Genesis game, but it's an NES game on steroids. And that was kind of one of the best. And the animation is incredible.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like it doesn't make sense that it exists.
Yeah.
Because every aspect of it just is like ludicrous and weird.
Well, the enemies are so bizarre. Like most of them are Bioforce other things,
Yeah.
right? So like, one of them is like a half kangaroo, half person. Where what is it? It's like the head's coming out of the pouch and the arms or the legs or something. One of them is got like a half crocodile, half person.
Yeah.
Where like the crocodile's mouth. Looking at myself on camera.
Yeah.
Like those are the legs walking around. Like
I love
that.
it. You
And
make
there's,
shark
like,
puppets and crocodiles.
Yeah.
What is that?
You need a flashlight and lower the lights.
And so it's like this head sticking out of a human head, like sticking out of an alligator's ass, and like the mouth walking around.
And this is why preserving video games
Absolutely,
is
it's so
important. Is so important.
It's also just fun.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I mean that
But it's a game that people think you're making up.
right.
When you hear about it, and it's like, and if you've heard about it, you'd say there's no way that was even.
No, it was real. And
Your
well,
uncle didn't work at Sega, and there's no such game as a Bioforce 8.
But you're going back in time for and to this day, as studios close, as projects don't work out, I assume you guys are likewise taking
We try.
modern games and trying to get a hold of those as well.
Well, we'll get calls. We'll get
Yeah.
calls from people like, if you don't show up by the end of today, this is all going in the
That happened.
dumpster and stuff like that. And we have to scramble. We'll either call people who might be closer to it or whatever.
Yeah.
We try to do our best to just go do the dumpster dive to get everything that could
Paperwork,
possibly,
things like that.
Well, often they won't let us take that stuff, but
Yeah.
I mean, I got a storage full of IDOS stuff.
Yeah, a lot of
And
IDOS
it's-
stuff.
But it's nothing like super interesting. It was just, I mean,
But
that's,
you never know. That's
you
why
never
you
know.
have to answer the call.
You never know, right? But like, well, I mean, and here's the situation. So like, IDOS was sold to Square Enix years ago, right? IDOS US used to operate here as a publisher. When the acquisition happened, all publishing operations moved to Europe. But Crystal Dynamics was still in the building that they had rented.
Okay.
And ironically, there was a tomb under Crystal Dynamics of IDOS stuff because that's where IDOS was operating. And they were just basically like playing out their lease. You know, they were just still in the space until the lease ran out. Lease ran out. We got a call because we know someone over there. They're like, hey, we got a bunch of stuff we're about to throw away. If you can come in and get it by 5 p.m., you can take it. Wow. So it's
so
just
off
like,
you go.
well,
Foundation to the rescue.
whatever game we're working on is just on hold today.
Yeah.
So,
while we
so
train
where does
you
all this stuff end up? So you're talking about, you're not just
Yeah.
collecting, you're preserving the history. Are you sending it to museums? Are you
Right,
scanning it? Are you
Yeah.
digitizing it? Are
It's a
you
little bit of
distributing
everything.
it?
Like right now, the foundation is so early and sort of fluid in its approach right now that we don't have like a thing we do. We just are just trying to do as much as we can until we find our footing and figure out how we best fit in the world. But what we're really in the phase of right now is the sort of identifying volatile things that might disappear and acquiring them and just putting them somewhere and figuring it out later. Is basically where we are right now.
So you're at acquisition, and then you're going to work on distribution.
Right, and
all that.
I mean, that said, sometimes we scan things, sometimes we write articles about artifacts that we have.
Yeah.
We do a lot of things. We have a writers fund where we give grants to people to what we call interpret video game history. So it's like, if you want to do some deep dive research into something that a video game site is never going to pay you for, right? But we can help with that. Like we can sort of kickstart that article for you with a little bit of money.
Can you give me an example of something you're working on with that right now?
Yeah, so I have a graphics designer named Kate who's doing this wonderful series where she is just chronologically going through the history of video game advertising.
Oh, wow.
And so she's just at the very beginning. So we just got past the Magnavox Odyssey. And that was a really interesting thing to look back on because there's videos that we have of like, you've seen this on What's My Line, you know, the game show What's My Line. So the rules of What's My Line is What's My Line. That's the name of the show, right?
I think.
Where they bring someone on who has a weird job, and the panelists have to ask yes or no questions until they figure out what his job is, his or her job is, and this guy was a representative of Magnavox. He was a salesman for the Odyssey, right?
Oh, wow.
And no one had ever seen a video game before.
Oh, wow.
And
Trying to figure out what it is.
So they wheel in
for
this
these guys.
television, and the contestants are only seeing the back of a television and they're seeing two people on stage talking to each other with a controller under the table.
And they've
going
never
like,
seen a game controller in their lives.
But they're not seeing the game controller
Yeah.
either. They're not seeing anything. So they're like, so it's like this amazing artifact where you're watching in real time people wrap their heads around the concept of a video game.
Yeah.
Where they're like, are you manipulating the television? Yes. Like, move on.
Wow.
They're like, are you competing? Yes. It's like, like someone
Freaking amazing.
Yeah.
and it's like they turn the game around and show them how it works, and they're just like, they don't understand how they're making things on the
Well,
television.
television
move.
served one purpose. They
Yeah.
were there to
Yeah.
show you TV shows.
Right.
Yeah, and they couldn't be used for anything else.
So we dug that out, and we dug out like I ordered back issues of Reader's Digest on eBay to like scan.
Couldn't just ask my mom.
Yeah, that's true. To scan like the advertising for like the Frank Sinatra special that introduced the Magnavox Odyssey, and like we get into like
I
it's
did not know that.
yeah, no
existed.
one knows about this stuff.
Oh
So
my
we did that,
gosh.
and then we she did her second part where she's going into like the first arcade advertising was Computer Space, and you know the flyer,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
with
I've
the
seen
lady in the dress. She's basically explaining where that came from. Like, that's the car industry back then. It's like, if you're advertising this giant cabinet
Made out of fiberglass.
right,
Right.
Like where are you looking for inspiration? You're looking at
Do a
ladies,
car ad,
like
exactly,
and
then the same
and
thing.
she's showing even like the typeface and how that was used and stuff like
Oh
that.
my gosh!
It's
Did
like,
you see the Shane Black flick, the Nice Guys?
Yes. Oh God.
The gunfight at the car
Yeah.
show. It's a 70s tastic like car show, and they're having a shootout, and the car is on this stereotypical rotating
Yeah.
thing, and he takes cover behind the car. It's getting shot, and the car just rotating. It's one of my favorite shots in a movie. I love it so much. Oh goodness, guys!
That's a really good rotating set piece bit in Arkham Knight also.
We come full circle. Now, what I do want to hit you up with here, Les, though. Okay, so you guys, you're a small foundation that's had a big impact, because I think you're selling yourself short on how much you've already preserved. I've never seen you more gleeful than literally watching with a shoulder bag full of discs, grinning and like running down a hallway.
What was that?
That was a GDC. You're just like, I just got history in a bag. Like, that's how you were so happy. But you do a lot, and you've preserved a lot, and just getting started. Yeah, the foundation's a little over a year old now,
Yeah,
right?
about a year and a half, yeah.
And
I mean, as an idea, it's much older than that, but as reality, it's a year and a half.
yeah, so how can the people watching and the people listening to this help save game history?
Oh,
what
sure.
can they do? What are all the different ways they can help out?
I mean, the easy way is to donate money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, we're organized and we have a pretty good grasp on what the needs are, and we're actually very tight with our budget, so we're not throwing your money away. And that is, if you go to our website, gamehistory.org, there's a big donate button. You can go straight to gamehistory.org/donate if that's easier. And what we'd like to encourage people to do if they really want to help is to become a part of our Patreon community.
Yeah.
Because
Like me.
yeah, you're never in our Discord though.
What's that?
You're never in the Discord.
I'm discordant. But yeah, I am in the.
We have a Discord. We have a little like backer only blog that I'll occasionally push exclusive things to. But the thing is, like, yeah, we're the quote unquote experts, but we can't know everything. We can't be everywhere. And the way that I really like people getting involved and talking in the Discord and like sort of solving mysteries together and sort of helping all of us sort of steer this foundation towards what it needs to be.
You want people to be extensions of us.
Yeah,
basically.
like I don't want to just work in this void and like, take your money and like, you just trust me to do what I need to do with it. It's like I want that to be a public conversation.
Yeah.
But also, not like it's, when I say public, I mean toward the people who really want to get involved, because I can't talk to the entire world all the time. You know what I mean? So like, I really like this Discord through Patreon model. If you guys want to get involved and talk about it with us, in terms of like volunteer work, we're figuring that out. Like, there's a lot of stuff to do. Our next big step, actually, and what we're going to start fundraising toward is we're going to open a research library here in the video game area, here in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Kind of the same,
The video
honestly.
game area,
That's kind of the video game area.
because I really, I have all this stuff and it's in my apartment and storage and stuff. We don't really have an office yet,
Yeah.
and I want people to come use this stuff, right? So we're hoping in the next maybe 6 months or so to open a research library.
Neat.
Like, I think the first video game research library ever.
Are you going to have a giant pair of scissors with a ribbon to cut on the day you open it?
No, I'm probably just going to be very stressed out and have a key.
Okay. I was hoping for a novelty pair of
I
scissors.
hope you
I
get
guess
the
we could
ladder
do
that
that.
rolls, though, in your library.
Oh, man,
Oh,
we should do
See,
that.
that's
love
a
that.
We got to help me build the shelving if we
I'll
do
do
that.
it.
But like to me, that's the first step toward getting the community like directly involved in person, where we don't just have a library of stuff. It's like, here's our digitization lab,
Yeah.
right? It's like we can start bringing volunteers in with book scanners set up already to just kind of do the labor and help, OCR all these documents and things so people can search them.
Right, and there's so much expertise around that in the area.
Yeah.
With again, the Internet Archive is based here. They
Yep.
know a lot about that, and you guys have been
the right place
You've been
for it.
doing that for a while, just a little bit.
We have.
So, all right, thanks, friends. And also, if anybody has a copy of the Hellraiser prototype cartridge in their basement, feel free to send that. That's probably gone
I know
forever.
where that is.
You do?
I'm working on it.
I thought that was gone. Somebody saved it.
It's at least the cartridge. We don't know what's on the ROMs.
I can't believe you're talking about the cartridge that has the Z80 built in. Oh my gosh,
The cartridge exists. We don't know what's on it.
Holy crap. Well, I'm happy. Jared nerds out today on Gamescast. Friends, it's not quite time for the show to end because Mobile Game or Bullshit returns. That's right. Our guests are going to play here today with us. Today's topic, mobile game.
Sorry, I'm just looking at this list. Is this a list of ranking the Marvel movies?
Oh, right here. Oh, yes. This is a show that happens here. There's the MCU in review and now the XCU in review. It's another show produced here in the studio. Marvel Cinematic Universe in review. Every week they argue and rank the movies.
Every week they re-rank the movies?
Yeah, every week. They
That's
just
beautiful.
keep
That's
adding
actually
one to the
great.
list and just keep building up.
I'm
Yeah.
just very happy to see Iron Man 3 in a respectable position.
Yeah, I like Iron Man 3.
Me too.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No
You're
problem
saying-
at all. So, unfortunately, with Kevin out of town, it's all pure chaos. We don't know how to play the Mobile Game or Bullshit theme song without him here. So, we're not getting that, but we're going to jump right into the game. Today, Mobile Game or Star Trek episode. To explain, it could either be the title of a mobile game or it could be the title of any series Star Trek episode. The original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, whatever.
Okay.
It could be
All right.
any of these. Okay?
Animated?
Animated. I didn't pick any from the animated, but it could be animated.
But actually it couldn't be because you didn't pick any.
All right, it couldn't be, so it couldn't. So we normally do 5, but I was worried some of these might be a little too easy, so I went with 7, so we'd have that tiebreaker. All right, and Mike, you're going to go first. Normally, Greg
do
keeps
it.
score on a sheet here. I'm going to keep score over on this end. Mike, your guess. Drolf.
Drolf?
Is Drolf a mobile game or a Star Trek episode? And by the way, these all have descriptions. Some of the descriptions are real, some are fake.
All right.
This is a piece from the mobile game description. Get the ball in the hole. Drolf. Is that mobile game or bullshit?
Bullshit.
Mike says bullshit.
Meaning that it's a Star Trek
That it's a Star Trek episode.
Okay.
Frank?
That's a mobile game.
That's a mobile game. All right. So Frank says mobile game. We got it.
That's the exact kind of title that someone who is purely an engineer would think would sell a video game.
There is a game called Droll. Just add an F. But I don't know. Like,
All right. So I'm keeping score today as well as hosting, which is going to slow things down a little. Number 2. Darmok. One touch bullet hell.
Darmok and the maybe fake game description is one touch bullet hell. Are all of these fake descriptions or all these
We don't know,
descriptions
right?
for mobile games? Right, not Star Trek episodes.
There are no Star Trek episode descriptions.
Got it. Okay. And what is the name again?
Darmok.
Darmok. I'm going Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Star Trek and Star Trek.
Yep.
All right.
Sounds like a Star Trek word.
All right.
It does.
You just add "ok" on the end of any.
Yeah.
A little
3
ock
letter.
there at the end.
Borok.
Yeah.
100 Rogues. A dungeon crawling fantasy adventure.
Ooh. Oh, that just you're trying to trick us. I think
That's a good one.
that's because that's too.
Would I
obvious.
do that? Would I do that?
It's what you want me to think is a mobile game, but it in fact is not a mobile game.
That does go on here a lot. But I can't tell you that's what's happening right now.
100 Rogues. It should be a mobile game. It should be a mobile game, but like
What's the call?
God damn it. This is hard.
Yeah, this show's mean.
Mobile game.
Mobile game. Frank?
I agree. I think you're trying to do the thing where you are like, no, that's too easy.
Too obvious.
Too obvious.
But I think you're turning that on its head, and it's a mobile game.
Number 4, War and Order. Orc knights, elf sages, dragon riders, and other incredible warriors are waiting to fight for your empire.
War and Order?
War and Order.
Like Law and Order.
Yeah. See, that makes me go mobile game because that kind of like stupid pun is not Star Trek.
There's some probably
But-
supermodel doing the ads.
Yeah. Oh,
Or
yeah.
some
Come
80s
play, my
action star.
liege. Yeah.
Yeah, like Jet Li.
I think Come Play My Liege was actually a real ad.
Yeah,
like, I think
it
that
was,
actually
it
did
was,
happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think?
Say it one more time.
All right. War and Order. Orc knights, elf sages, dragon riders, and other incredible warriors are waiting to fight for your empire.
I'm gonna go Star Trek, but only because all of these sound like mobile games to me, and it's like surely you did some Star Trek.
All right. Mike, what about you?
I don't understand Orc Knights or any of these sorts of things, so I'm going with Star Trek.
All right.
Like, it sounds like that was made up.
Okay. Number 5. Balance of Terror. Description. Orc knights, elf sages, dragon riders, and other incredible warriors are waiting to fight for your empire.
Star Trek. We're going to do Star Trek on that one.
That actually sounds like Star Trek to me.
Okay. Number 6. A Taste of Armageddon. Gather your friends and win World War III.
I'd want to play every one of these as a mobile game. By the
Yeah.
way. They all sound amazing.
I'm gonna go Star Trek on that one
Taste of
because that
Armageddon.
doesn't sound like it doesn't scream product.
It
to
feels
me.
like they went back in time at a point where Earth went down this dystopian path.
Yeah.
And so it ends up just being a Western set. that
Yeah.
They're filming it at. So I'm going to go with Star Trek.
Okay. Actually, the Western said that would be Shadow of the Gun.
It would be. So you know more.
But this is this, by the way, this topic was suggested by a kind of funny best friend. I don't have the name here right now, unfortunately. I think it had already gotten eaten by my Twitter feed.
Whoever
but
you
thank
are,
whoever
this
you are.
is great.
This is really good.
Last one, Second Skin. Can you do the surgery?
Ooh. I want to play that mobile game.
Yeah.
Second Skin. It sounds like something that would be like some sort of alien species sort of thing that they discover in an episode of Star Trek. Possibly.
All right.
I don't want Frank to win. I'm going to say Star Trek. I don't care.
Say Star Trek. All right, Frank?
I'm also going to say Star Trek because the surgery genre is way overpopulated, and that title is too clever for someone who's just cashing in on the genre.
All right, so it's not a good cash-in game. All right, let's see what we got here. Number 1, Drolf. Get the ball in the hole. Mobile game.
Damn it.
Mobile game, and get the ball in the hole is part of the real description. So you're keeping track. You're keeping score for yourself here.
Okay.
Since I don't have that, so you want. Okay, here we go.
I'm down.
Number 2, Darmok. One touch bullet hell. Darmok. One of the very best episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
That's
Yes.
both of us?
Yeah, that's both of you.
Okay.
That's right. You both got that one right.
2-1.
Darmok that is a superb episode. Really, really good. Standout TNG. 100 Rogues. Both of you said mobile game, and both of you were correct.
Boom.
Mobile game. There we go.
3 for 3. Don't know if you
War
noticed.
and Order. Both of you said Star Trek. War and Order. Hello, my liege. Is a mobile game.
That doesn't surprise me.
Is a mobile game. Whereupon Balance of Terror, which you both said was Star Trek. Absolutely.
All right, there we go.
Star Trek.
Damn.
That's right.
Did Frank agree with me on everything I ever said?
Yeah. Yeah. Then, let's see. A Taste of Armageddon. Gather your friends and win World War III. Taste of Armageddon is a Star Trek: The Original Series episode
All right.
about a future where people have learned not to fight real wars, so they fight simulated ones, but still kill everybody that dies in the simulated battle through euthanasia.
What if the
Okay.
simulated battle was on a mobile device?
Oh, that'd be amazing. And finally, Second Skin. Likewise, Star Trek episode.
That's 6 out
You
of
guys
7
both
for
got it.
this
That's
guy.
pretty good.
5 out of 7.
Yeah, very good.
Screw you,
there we
Frank.
go. So Frank wins by 1, and you're a new champion. We can't play the theme song. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been the Kind of Funny Games cast. If folks want to know more about the Foundation and you guys, where do you look? Where do you go?
Gamehistory.org, please. And we have a real cool blog with a lot of community-written content that interprets video game history in really interesting ways. Latest post, I believe, was about the first moral panic in video game history around a game called Death Race.
Oh, that's right. You can go to the Museum Mechanique and play Death Race
Yeah,
right now.
you can.
You can. Mike, what about you?
You can just follow me at Mike J. Micah on Twitter. And I usually post about stupid stuff and also what we're doing.
And once again, everybody, I want to thank our Patreon producers, most of all, Warren Moore, Eric Heitz, Tom Bach. Y'all make this happen. All of you who watch and support on Patreon make this happen. Everybody listening, thank you. Our jobs are a privilege. You make them possible. Greg and Tim will be back next week. Thanks for hanging out with us here, Sinking Ship, and see you next time.
Bye.
And that was this week's episode of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Click over here to subscribe to our channel. Click over here to check out our Patreon. Click over here to look at last week's episode, and click over here for the most recent episode of Party Mode.